Thursday night was supposed to be ordinary. That's the strange thing about the moments that split your life in two. They don't announce themselves. They slip in wearing the clothes of a normal day. No thunder, no warning, no dramatic music swelling in the background. Just leftover pizza, a tired kitchen light, and the person you trust most talking like nothing in the world is about to shift. We were at our kitchen table, the cheap wooden one we bought when we first moved in together, back when everything felt like a joint project. The box from Tony's downtown sat open between us. Grease spots were soaking into the cardboard. The smell of pepperoni and garlic still hung in the air. I had the last slice on my plate, and she had her feet tucked under her chair, scrolling through her phone with one hand and gesturing with the other while she talked. She was telling me about Eli again. Eli was her younger brother, a man who floated through life on optimism and other people's money. Every few weeks, there was a new plan, a new angle, a new way he was finally going to make it big. This time, it was something about a food truck, or maybe a pop-up restaurant. I wasn't entirely sure. I'd stopped trying to keep track of which dream was currently in season. She talked fast, like she always did when she was in her family orbit. Her fingers moved over her screen, tapping messages, checking group chats, opening links she wanted me to see, but never actually turned toward me. I nodded at the right spots. I asked a couple of questions. It wasn't that I didn't care. I did. I cared because I cared about her. But a part of me had learned that her family stories weren't really stories. They were forecasts. Each one was a soft knock on the door of our bank account. Eli thinks he can get investors if he pitches it right, she said, chewing, eyes still on her phone. He just needs a little help covering the upfront stuff, so he doesn't look broke when he's meeting people. Upfront stuff, I repeated. That phrase had a long history in our house. It usually meant rent, deposits, repair bills, late fees, the kind of costs that were always urgent, always temporary, and somehow always came back in a new form the next month. She laughed lightly. Yeah, a couple thousand for the permit, maybe some equipment. He's close, I can feel it. I said, and reached for my slice. I wasn't trying to be cynical. I just had a mental list of the times we'd heard close before. Close to a better job. Close to paying back Joy. Close to turning the last rescue into a turning point. Close, like a finish line that kept moving. She kept talking. I kept doing what I always did. Listening, balancing my face between supportive and neutral, careful not to look annoyed. Dinner with us had developed a rhythm over the years. Her family came to the table with us the way the pizza did. Not physically, but in the air, in the conversation, in the assumptions. Then she looked up. It wasn't a big movement. Just that brief shift when she needed to check if I was still with her. Our eyes met for a second, and I expected the usual, a quick smile, a right, or you know what I mean. Something that invited me into her world. Instead, she said, casually, my family will always come first in every decision. Your second priority, maybe third. The word priority landed like a drop plate. For a second, I actually thought I'd misheard. The way you mishear a line in a song, and then suddenly realize it was something else. But there was no misunderstanding. She'd said clearly, calmly, like she was confirming a grocery list. I sat there holding my slice halfway to my mouth. I didn't chew. I didn't swallow. I just looked at her. Second, I repeated. My voice came out quieter than I meant it to. Maybe third. She shrugged, eyes already drifting back to her screen. I'm just being honest. The room felt smaller all at once, like the walls had moved in a few inches. I set my slice down carefully, the way you set down something fragile, even when it isn't. I was trying to keep my hand steady. Is that how you really see it? I asked. She didn't look bothered by the question. That was what scared me. If she'd been angry or defensive or even a little nervous, I could have chalked it up to a bad moment. But she wasn't any of those things. She was relaxed. Certain. Of course, she said. Blood is thicker than water. They were here before you. They'll be here after you. That's how it works. There's a particular kind of silence that comes after someone says something you can't unhear. It's not empty. It's full of choices. Full of the road you could take if you answer wrong. Full of the fact that you're being measured and you didn't know a test was happening. I stared at her. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say something sharp and smart and undeniable. But my mind was doing something else. It was rewinding, pulling up memories like files in a cabinet. The time we sent Eli money for a security deposit that he promised he'd pay back in 2 months. The time Joy called crying because she'd maxed her card covering their parents' taxes again. The weekends that turned into family crisis meetings that ended with my checkbook on the table. The "we'll figure it out" that always meant "you'll help pay for it." I remembered how often I'd swallowed my irritation because I told myself marriage meant teamwork. I remembered how often she said, "They just need us right now," and I believed that right now would eventually stop being right now. Maybe I was slow. Maybe I was too patient. But sitting there, looking at her face lit by her phone, I felt something click into place. She wasn't revealing a new rule. She was finally naming the rule we'd already been living under. "Good to know where I stand," I said. She glanced up again, this time with a slight frown, like she was trying to locate the problem. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm glad you said it out loud." I forced a small, tight smile. "Better to be clear." "Don't be dramatic," she said, and went back to scrolling. I saw her thumb moving, quick little taps. She was probably texting Joy about something. The latest problem, the next step, another plan that would be presented to me as a shared responsibility. I watched her type. The longer I watched, the calmer I felt. Not because I was okay with what she said, but because something inside me had stopped trying to negotiate with confusion. I finished eating in silence. The pizza tasted like cardboard now, like my mouth had switched off the part that enjoyed things. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't think it mattered. She was so used to my quiet support that she treated it like furniture. Reliable, always in the background, something you only notice when it's gone. Later, when we went to bed, she fell asleep fast. She always did. I lay there listening to her breathing, even and steady, the way someone sleeps when they believe their world is solid. My eyes were open in the dark. I wasn't angry in the way people imagine anger. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't pacing. I was clear, like someone had finally handed me the map to a building I'd been walking through blind. She had said I was second priority, maybe third, and she had meant it. I turned onto my side and looked at the outline of her face. I knew her. I knew she loved me in her way. I also knew love doesn't cancel hierarchy. You can love someone and still place them on a lower shelf. Somewhere inside me, the future rearranged itself without asking permission. I didn't know every step yet. I didn't know how long it would take, or what it would cost, or how messy it could get. But the direction was suddenly obvious. Because if I wasn't first in her decisions, then I had to be first in mine. And that was the moment Thursday stopped being a normal night. The moment it became the beginning of something she wouldn't see coming until it was already moving. By morning, her words from Thursday night weren't echoing anymore. They had settled. Not like an argument you replay because you're angry, but like a fact your body finally accepts. I moved through the apartment differently, as if the floor had shifted a half inch and my balance had to adjust. She was already in motion when I came into the kitchen. Hair still damp, phone in hand, coffee brewing. The day hadn't even started and her family had already entered the room through the screen. "Mom's stressed about the property taxes again," she said, rummaging for a lid to her travel mug. "They're short because of Dad's bills. Eli thinks he can cover it if his investor meeting goes well, but who knows? Joy's trying to calm everyone down. I swear it's always something." She said it like a weather report, and I watched her say it with a new clarity I didn't ask for but couldn't ignore. The always something wasn't a complaint. It was a rhythm, a system, and I was part of the system whether I spoke up or not. She took a sip, grabbed her purse, and kissed my cheek like we hadn't crossed a line the night before. "I'll probably be late tonight," she called as she headed for the door. "Meeting Joy and Eli to talk about Dad's situation." "Sure thing," I said. The words came out automatically. I didn't even feel them pass my lips. That was the last time I let habit answer for me without permission. When the door shut, the apartment felt different. Not empty, just mine. I rinsed my plate, set it in the sink, and opened my laptop at the kitchen table. Same table, same light overhead. But now it didn't feel like the stage for a shared life. It felt like my office. I opened a browser and typed something I never seriously typed before: local credit unions. The results were ordinary. Maps. Names I'd driven past without noticing. I clicked on one called Grace's Community Bank downtown. Their website was plain, almost stubbornly simple. No glossy promises, no gimmicks. Just rates, services, and a quiet message that they'd be there tomorrow. I hit open an account. The form asked for name, address, employer, initial deposit. When it asked if the account would be joint, I paused only long enough to feel the weight of the word. Individual, checking and savings. Both in my name alone. For statements, I entered my work address. I didn't want envelopes arriving at home. Not because I was sneaking around to hurt her, because I was building walls where there had been none. A line that said, "This part is mine." The confirmation email came through a few minutes later. Short, professional, done. I stared at it for a moment longer than I needed to. Then I opened another tab. Mortgage pre-approval calculator. Buying a house had always lived in the blurry future for us. One of those when we're ready goals. We talked about it in easy, hopeful phrases. After we save more. Once your parents are stable. When Eli's on his feet. I used to believe those were real milestones. Now I saw them for what they were, moving targets. I typed in my salary and my current debts. Project coordinator. Not rich, but steady. Clean credit. No big loans. No expensive habits. For years, I'd been funneling money into our joint savings because I thought we were building a foundation together. The calculator returned numbers that didn't feel like a fantasy. A small place in the right neighborhood was possible. Not tomorrow, but soon. And the only thing that had been holding it back was the invisible tax of other people's emergencies. I scheduled appointments right there in my pajamas. Friday lunch break with Grace's bank. A second meeting with a different lender to compare. Then a weekend slot with a mortgage broker who had blunt reviews that sounded like honesty instead of charm. By the time I shut my laptop, it was close to 2 a.m. I went to bed without waking her. She slept the way people sleep when they believe nothing is about to change. Friday, I moved through work like always. Emails, timelines, check-ins, small decisions that kept projects afloat. But under the surface, I felt like I had a second life running parallel to the first. A life where my choices didn't have to pass through a family filter. At lunch, I drove downtown and stepped into Grace's Community Bank. The lobby smelled like paper and polished wood. The banker was calm, middle-aged, the kind of person who never rushed someone who looked nervous. She went over the account details, asked about my goals, and said, "And this will be individual, correct? Only in your name?" "Yes," I said. "Only me. I made my first deposit. Not life-changing money. Just a start. But starts matter. They're how you prove to yourself you're serious." Direct deposit would take a week to reroute from my job, but I didn't wait. That evening, after she fell asleep on the couch with her phone still in her hand, I opened our joint savings on my laptop. There was a good chunk there. Years of consistent deposits. And when I scanned the transaction history, I saw what I'd been too polite to name for too long. My contributions sat like a reservoir, and her family's needs opened the drain whenever they wanted. I transferred half the savings into my new account. Half. Not all. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was trying to protect myself. Trying to carve out a future that didn't depend on whether Eli had another idea or her parents hit another wall. She didn't notice. She rarely checked balances unless there was a crisis. And crises had never waited for her to look ahead. Saturday morning, she told me she was going to brunch with Joy because she's been overwhelmed. I nodded, kissed her goodbye, and said I was meeting coworkers to watch the game. Instead, I sat in a small office with Richard Faulner, a mortgage broker who looked like he had no patience for wishful thinking. He reviewed my paperwork, tapped a couple of numbers into his system, and leaned back. "People think they need perfect credit and a massive down payment," he said. "But you got steady income, decent savings, and no major debt. If you want to buy, you could close within 60 days. 60 days. I drove home with that number repeating in my head. For years, I'd been waiting for a permission slip that was never coming. Now I didn't need one. That evening, she was on the phone with her mother for almost 2 hours. Eli's plan was wobbling again. The family was strategizing. My name came up twice. I heard a background noise that used to be normal. "He'll understand," she said. "We can figure something out." She was talking about me like a resource already assigned to the task. Sunday, I drove through neighborhoods. Quiet streets, small yards, older homes with trees that had been there longer than any argument. I wasn't looking for status. I was looking for peace. A place where no one would drop by unannounced with a problem and an expectation. By night, I had a favorite house saved on my phone. When she finally looked up from her screen before bed, she frowned slightly. "You've been quiet this weekend," she said. "Everything okay?" I brushed my teeth, watching myself in the mirror. I looked calm. That surprised me. "Just thinking," I said. "About what?" I met her eyes in the reflection. "Priorities." She laughed like it was harmless. "Don't overthink it," she said. "Family stuff is complicated, but it always works out." "I'm sure it does," I replied. She turned off the light, climbed into bed, and fell asleep quickly. I lay there awake, listening to her breathing. Family stuff was complicated, but she'd already drawn the boundary around who her family was. And I had started drawing mine. Wednesday was the first time I knew boundaries had to survive contact with real life. I was making dinner when she came home. Pasta sauce bubbling, garlic in the air, the same calm routine we'd always had, until her family walked through the door with her. She didn't say hello. She didn't even take her coat off properly. She dropped her purse on the counter harder than necessary. "Eli's landlord is threatening eviction," she said. "He needs $3,000 by Friday, or he's out." I kept stirring the sauce, buying myself 2 seconds to stay steady. "That's rough," I said. "What's his plan?" She stared at me like I'd asked something foolish. "What do you mean, his plan?" "We need to help him." Obviously, she was already pulling out her phone. I told Joy we'd cover it. "She's coordinating with Mom and Dad." The word hit me like a shove. I turned off the burner and faced her. "When did we discuss this?" Her eyebrows shot up. Irritation flashed across her face. Quick, hot, automatic. "We don't need to discuss helping family," she snapped. "It's what people do." "Some people," I said carefully, "but those decisions involve our money, which means they involve both of us." She looked genuinely confused, as if this was a brand new rule I'd invented. "Since when do you have a problem helping my family?" I felt the Thursday night sentence rise between us like smoke. "Since you made it clear where I rank in your priorities." That stopped her for half a breath. I saw recognition flicker in her eyes. Then she did what she always did when a conversation pointed at something she didn't want to face. She sidestepped it. "This isn't about priorities," she said louder. "This is about doing the right thing." According to who? According to basic human decency. Her voice kept climbing like volume could win. "My brother needs help, and we can provide it." I walked back to the stove, picked up the spoon again, and said the line I've been holding all week. "I can't provide it." She blinked. "What do you mean you can't?" "I mean, I don't have $3,000 available for Eli's rent." She let out a sharp laugh, like she thought I was bluffing. "That's ridiculous. We have savings." "You have savings," I corrected. "I've reorganized my finances." Her mouth parted slightly. The ground under her assumptions shifted. "What are you talking about?" I turned to face her fully. "I opened personal accounts. I moved my share of the joint savings into them. I'm separating my finances." "Your personal accounts?" she repeated, like I'd said something unthinkable. "Since when do you have personal accounts?" "Since I decided to prioritize myself in my own life." She stared at me, searching for a crack, a sign I'd back down if she pushed hard enough. "You can't be serious. Eli needs help. Eli needs to learn financial responsibility." I kept my voice calm. "That's between him and whoever wants to keep rescuing him." "Rescuing him?" Her eyes sharpened. "This is my brother. I know exactly who he is. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The same brother who needed help with a security deposit 6 months ago, and a car payment before that, and credit card debt before that." She opened her mouth, then closed it. She knew I wasn't wrong. "This is different," she said finally. "It's always different," I replied. "But it always comes back to our money." Her jaw tightened. "My family has always been there for us. Your family has always been there for you." I paused. "There's a difference." That landed deeper than anything else I'd said. She didn't like it because it was true. She looked down at her phone like it might give her a better argument. "I already told Joy we'd help. I can't go back and say no." "And yet you will," I said. Her head snapped up. "So you just done helping? After everything?" I'm done funding problems I didn't create. You're punishing them for needing support. I'm protecting myself from being their safety net forever." She shook her head, breath tight. "We're married. We share responsibilities. Then we share decisions," I said. "But you don't share decisions. You announce them. That's not fair." "It's accurate." For a moment, the kitchen went still. The clock ticked loud enough to feel like pressure. Then her face hardened into something I recognized, a look she wore when she needed me to fold. "You're being selfish." I felt a tired kind of clarity. "Self-preservation isn't selfish," I said. "It's overdue." She stared at me as if I'd become a stranger in 1 week. "So what do you want?" "An apology for what I said." "The phrasing wasn't the problem," I replied. "The meaning was. You meant it." Her eyes flashed. Hurt and anger tangled together. "Stop throwing that in my face." "I'm not throwing anything," I said. "I'm living by the rule you gave me." Her phone buzzed again. She looked at it, and I watched her priorities reassemble right in front of me. Panic first, family second, me somewhere after that. "They're counting on us," she said. "You can't pull out just because you're upset." "I'm not upset," I answered. "I'm clear." She backed away like the air itself had gone sharp. "Fine," she said tightly. "Do whatever you want. But if Eli ends up on the street, that's on you." I met her eyes. "If Eli ends up on the street, that's on Eli." She turned away, already typing furious messages, already pulling the family into the room to stand beside her. "I can't believe who you're becoming," she muttered. I watched her, and the realization came quiet but certain. This wasn't a fight. This was the first crack. The moment the old arrangement stopped working for them. And people don't let go of a system that benefits them without trying to force it back into place. After Wednesday, the apartment stopped feeling like a home and started feeling like a checkpoint. Every conversation was either a trap or a negotiation. She tested silence. She tested anger. She tested guilt. I didn't give her the reaction she wanted, and that made her more restless than any argument. Thursday morning, she tried to sound reasonable. We sat at breakfast, the same table where she'd ranked me like I was being sorted into a list. "Look," she said, staring into her coffee. "I know you're upset about what I said last week. Maybe I could have phrased it better." "The phrasing wasn't the problem," I replied. "The meaning was." She looked up, frustrated for a second, then smoothed her face. "Family is important to me," she said. "That doesn't mean you're not important." "It means exactly that," I said. "You said I'm second, maybe third." "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" She opened her mouth and froze. The silence was the answer. She wasn't correcting a mistake. She was trying to regain access. "Can we table this and focus on Eli?" she asked. "There's nothing to table," I said. "You were clear." I adjusted. Her phone buzzed, and she grabbed it instantly. Something from Joy. Probably a new version of the same emergency. Her attention slid away from me like it always did, and I saw again how automatic her priorities were. Friday morning, the comm mask dropped. Panic took its place. She stood in the bedroom doorway while I buttoned my shirt. "They're short," she said. "Mom and Dad can do 500. Joy can do 3. We still need 2,200. Please, I'll pay you back." "With what money?" I asked. "I'll pick up shifts. I'll figure it out." "You'll figure out the same way Eli figures things out," I said. She flinched but pushed harder. "This matters to me." "I understand that," I said, "but it doesn't override my financial security." She stared like the word security offended her. "Since when do you worry about that?" "Since I realized I might need to take care of myself someday." She had nothing to say to that, because she knew I was right. If I fell tomorrow, her family would offer sympathy and wait for me to solve it alone. But if they fell, my money was already assigned before anyone asked. That afternoon, I made my move. During lunch, I called my agent and put in an offer on the house I'd been watching. Full asking price. Fast closing. Down payment from my separate account. An hour later, she called back. "Accepted," she said. "You're under contract." I sat there in my office chair, phone in my hand, feeling a quiet kind of victory that wasn't about beating anyone. It was about finally choosing myself without apologizing. Eli solved his eviction by taking a payday loan. Temporary fix, long-term damage, his usual pattern. She didn't mention it that night, but I could feel the tension in her shoulders when she moved past me in the kitchen. The weekend was cold. Not violent, not dramatic, just that brittle air when someone realizes they can't control you anymore. She threw small comments like stones. Marriage isn't supposed to be this way. People don't just abandon family. Money changes people. I didn't bite. I spent my time reading inspection reports, calling contractors, and planning repairs. For the first time in years, my energy was going somewhere that wouldn't be drained by the next crisis. Monday morning, Richard the broker called. "Your credit score improved," he said. "Banks offering a better rate." "How much better?" I asked. "Half a point. Saves you about $8,000 over the life of the loan." I almost laughed. The minute I stopped carrying her family's financial weight, my numbers got healthier. The system had been costing me more than money. Tuesday, I opened another investment account. Simple, aggressive growth. I was 42. I had time. And for once, I had a plan that didn't depend on anyone else acting responsibly. Wednesday evening, she tried a new approach. Inclusion instead of pressure. "Joy thinks we should have a family meeting," she said, sitting closer than she had in days. "Everyone lays out finances. We help each other better." I looked up from the inspection report. "That sounds like a great idea for your family." Her face tightened. "You're part of this family. According to your list, I'm optional," I said. "Optional members don't have mandatory payments." "Stop saying that." "I didn't invent it," I replied. "I'm just living by it." Thursday brought the wave I'd expected. Eli called, then Joy, then her father, who had never called me directly before. They all wore the same polite tone at first, like they believed the old version of me was still here. "We're pooling resources," Eli said. "Everyone contributes based on income. That works when everyone shares priorities," I said. "I don't." Joy tried softer language. "We've always considered you family." "That's nice," I said. "But your sister told me where I rank. I'm not funding emergencies anymore." Pause. "But you have the means." There it was. The assumption underneath everything. "I have the means to take care of myself," I said. "That's where it ends. You won't help your in-laws keep their home." I'll let the silence sit before answering. "Who's helping me if I ever need it?" She had no answer. That night, I met a lawyer. Not because I was eager to divorce, but because I wanted to know what boundaries looked like legally. "Separate property acquired with separate funds stays separate," he said. "Document everything. Avoid mixing accounts. If she pays into your house, she can claim part." Understood. I'd already been doing that. Now, I knew how important it was. When I got home, she was waiting at the kitchen table with printed statements spread out like a case file. Yellow highlights, neat handwriting, totals circled. "You moved 12,000, she said, without discussing it. I sat down calmly. "Your numbers are right." "That's all you're going to say?" "What else would you like me to say?" "An explanation. An apology." "I wasn't hiding," I said. "I was managing my finances. That money was ours. You treated it like your family's," I replied. "I'm opting out." Her phone rang in the middle of it. She looked at the caller ID and went pale. "It's Mom." She answered. I could hear her mother's panic even from across the table. "Foreclosure notice. 60 days. 24,000 owed." She hung up and stared at me as if the next word out of my mouth would decide everything. "My parents are going to lose their house." "That's unfortunate," I said quietly. She waited for the rescue offer. I didn't give it. "We need to help them," she said finally. "You need to help them," I corrected. "I need to protect my future." "This is different. It's the same pattern with bigger consequences," I said. "Adults face consequences." Her voice rose. Her pacing started. The familiar frantic math began. "If we combine everything." "My money isn't part of your equation," I said. "How can you be so cold?" "I'm not cold," I answered. "I'm consistent. You said your family comes first. This is you choosing for them. I'm choosing for mine." She froze, because in that moment, she finally understood something she'd never planned for. The line wasn't a threat anymore. It was real, and they were about to push against it with everything they had. The moving company text came in on Saturday morning, confirming the pickup. I read it quietly. She noticed a glance at my phone. "What was that?" she asked. "Nothing important." "Show me." "No." Her face shifted fast, desperation turning into suspicion. "What are you hiding?" "I'm not hiding anything." I'm setting boundaries. Boundaries? We're married. Married to someone who told me I'm second or third, I said. That changes what access looks like. She didn't answer. Her phone started ringing again almost immediately. The family storm was getting louder, and no one was trying to steer it anymore. They were just looking for the nearest person to absorb the damage. Over the next few days, they called in waves. Eli first. His voice was careful, like he was rehearsing politeness. We're pooling resources to save Mom and Dad's house, he said. Everyone contributes based on income. It's fair. That's a plan for your family, I replied. Your family. I married your sister. Your sister made my rank clear. I'm not part of the funding cycle. Joy called next, trying a softer angle. We just need a co-signer, she said. Your credit is good. If you help us get the loan, we'll handle payments. You want my name on your parents' debt? I said. No. Her father called after that, voice shaky with fear and pride breaking. Family helps family, he said. Your family helps your family. I answered. I'm taking care of mine. They didn't have anything to say after that because the truth was simple. Their plan required my money, and my money was no longer available. Friday afternoon, she came home early. Her eyes were red. I talked to a lawyer today, she said. About what? About what I'm entitled to if we separate. She forced the words out. They said anything acquired during marriage is community property, including your new accounts. I nodded once. Did they explain the exceptions? She blinked. What exceptions? Separate property bought with separate funds stays separate if I can document it and keep it clean. Her face moved through shock, anger, then something like dread. You've been planning this. I've been protecting myself. Saturday morning, Joy called crying. We're out of options, she said. The foreclosure is moving forward. We need a miracle. We're family, she sobbed. Family doesn't let family become homeless. Your family doesn't, I said quietly. Mine is me. Silence. Then the question came smaller. You bought a house. I did, without telling anyone. Closed yesterday. That evening the movers came. Boxes went out the door while my wife sat on the porch watching. She didn't speak until the last load. Is this how it ends? She asked. This is how it begins for me. Sunday morning in the new house felt like air after years underwater. Quiet, clean, mind. No phone buzzing beside breakfast. No emergency hanging over the day. She called 6 times before noon. The texts went from angry to pleading. Answer me, please. I replied once. I'm available at 2 p.m. if you want to come by. Come by where? My house. At 2, she pulled in my driveway and sat in her car before getting out, like she needed time to accept the reality. When she stepped inside, her eyes swept the rooms. When did you buy it? She asked. Closed Friday. Moved in yesterday. How long have you been planning this? Since the night you told me where I stand. She swallowed, then pulled out the foreclosure notice. They have 3 days. We found a solution, but we need your help. Explain. Joy's husband can get a loan if we co-sign, and everyone contributes proportionally. Proportionally based on income? She hesitated. Yes. And my share? Another hesitation. $800 a month. Indefinitely. Not indefinitely, she said fast. Until Dad's Social Security gets fixed and Mom goes back to work. Your mother is 67, I said. She's not going back to work. Her eyes filled. She tried bargaining. If you help, I'll change. Counseling. I'll be more considerate. You're offering to be nicer about asking me to fund your family, I said. Not to stop expecting it. That's not fair. Fair would be your family taking responsibility, I replied. None of this requires my money. She stood, shaking her head. You're heartless. I'm honest. What about our marriage? You already answered that when you ranked me. She left without another word. The foreclosure went through. I heard later her parents moved into an apartment. Eli filed bankruptcy. Joy's marriage strained under the weight of holding everyone up. 3 months after I moved, divorce papers arrived. She wanted half of everything. House, accounts, support. My lawyer reviewed my documentation and nodded. She'll get half of the marital property before separation. Not the house. Not the new accounts. That's what happened. For hours in a settlement conference, and it was done. She walked away with half the joint savings we'd maintained before I split things. half my 401k from the marriage years, and nothing else. As we signed the final papers, she looked at me like fairness should rescue her again. "This isn't fair," she said. "Fair is subjective," I replied. "Legal isn't." 6 months later, I ran into Joy at a hardware store. She looked tired. "Do you ever regret how things ended?" she asked. "Never." She searched my face. "We thought you cared about family." "I do," I said. "I cared enough to stop letting poor planning become my future." A year later, I was promoted. Better salary, more peace. I bought a truck with cash because I wanted it, not because anyone needed saving. I heard she remarried eventually. I hoped her new husband understood the rules he was walking into. But my job wasn't to warn anyone anymore. Some people called what I did selfish. I called it survival. Because when someone tells you where you stand, believing them is the first step to saving yourself. I believed her, and I built a life where I finally came first. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.